Good evening, night shifters. This is third shift HFY. Settle in and let tonight's stars tell their story.
Thanks for clicking on the video. I hope you enjoy the story. And if you liked what you hear, drop a like and comment on your favorite part. And enjoy your day. Let's begin the story of the last hunt, how humans broke a predator. The air was thick with smoke and neon haze, humming with the laughter of mercenaries and the clink of mugs. A dozen species crowded into the cramped orbital bar, their voices loud, their gestures wild. Tales of survival and slaughter rolled across the tables like spilled ale. Then the doors groaned open. He stepped in. A towering alien, hide mottled with old scars, one cloudy eye dull against the gleam of the other. His armor was dented, patched together from hunts long past, and a belt hung heavy with trophies, teeth, claws, shards of bone carved into shapes. Every step of his clawed boots thudded on the metal floor. The room shifted. Laughter died down, heads turned, even the bravest leaned back slightly. The predator had arrived. He dropped onto a reinforced stool that creaked under his bulk. With a grunt, he set a heavy mug on the counter. The bartender filled it without a word. From the back, a thin insectoid alien with glowing green eyes shouted,
"Tell us a tale, Hunter! What beast did you bleed today?"
The crowd echoed with cheers and pounding fists. They wanted a story. They wanted blood. The predator raised his mug, drank deep, and let the foam drip across his scarred jaw. His gravelly voice rumbled low, carrying across the room, even when he spoke softly.
"Witch hunt. There are too many kills, too many trophies."
The crowd roared approval. Already, mugs were lifted high, slamming against tables. They thought they knew his tales, of beasts torn down, of victories mounted on his wall. But tonight, they would hear the story that broke him. The predator's hand tightening around his mug, scarred knuckles white, as the crowd chants for blood. The predator drained half his mug, slammed it on the counter, and turned his good eye toward the crowd. His gravelly voice rolled like thunder, commanding silence, then erupting in laughter.
"You want hunts? I've bled monsters across 100 worlds. I brought down a sky serpent on Zayros 3, 30 meters long, armored scales thick as warship plating. Its head hangs above my fire pit."
The crowd erupted in cheers, fists hammering tables. A furred quadruped leaned forward, ears perked, practically drooling with excitement.
"I tracked the stoneback herds of Orvac through acid storms. I killed one with nothing but a blade in my hands. Its bones, still sharp enough to cut steel."
Another roar of approval. A small amphibian in a tattered cloak leapt up on his stool, shouting,
"Tell us the biggest, the most fearsome. What beast left scars on you?"
The predator bared his jagged teeth, tapping the cloudy eye with one claw. His laugh was deep and humorless.
"This, from a dusk beast. Thought its venom would kill me in minutes. Took 3 days for me to put it down, and I lived to drink after."
The room erupted, mugs slammed, laughter echoing against metal walls. They were hooked. They were ready for more. The predator leaned back in his chair, swirling the last of his drink. His gaze swept the crowd, the cheers, the expectation, the hunger for blood. His voice dropped, quieter, almost daring.
"I hunted everything worth killing, everything worth mounting on a wall."
The audience hushed, leaning closer. Someone in the back shouted the question that cracked the air like a whip.
"What about the humans?"
The bar froze. Mugs stopped midair. Even the smoke seemed to pause. The predator's clawed hand stilled on the counter, tightening until the mug creaked under his grip. His good eye narrowed. His cloudy one stared into nothing. The room had wanted laughter. They had wanted blood. But with that single word, humans, the hunt turned inward. And something changed in the hunter's eyes. The predator did not answer. He sat motionless, mud cracking under his grip. The foam dripped down his scarred knuckles, hissing as it hit the heated floor grate. His tusked jaw twitched, muscles tight as bowstring. The silence stretched too long. The crowd, moments ago drunk with laughter, now sat stiff, eyes darting between each other. The insectoid who had shouted the question shifted uncomfortably, his antennae twitching like nervous fingers. The predator finally set the mug down. Carefully, deliberately. The sound of metal scraping wood was louder than a cannon in the hush. He didn't look at them when he spoke. His gravelly voice was lower now, every word chewed through his scarred throat.
You don't hunt humans.
A few in the crowd chuckled nervously. The amphibian in the cloak croaked.
Why not? Fragile things, no claws, no fangs, soft hides, easy meat.
The predator's head turned sharply, his good eye locking on the speaker. The smaller alien swallowed the laugh and shrank back into his stool.
Easy. You call them easy. Hunted one once. Thought the same. Thought it'd be sport.
The room stilled. Even the bartender, polishing a glass, paused mid-wipe. Every barfly in that room leaned forward. They'd come for another boast, another kill to cheer, but what they got instead was the story that ended the hunter. The predator's claws tapped the counter once, hard. His voice dropped to a whisper.
They smiled at me.
The predator leaned forward, elbows on the counter, claws curling into fists. His voice was steady now, but there was no pride in it, only memory that clung like rot.
They put a bounty on them once. Said humans were spreading too far, too fast, too stubborn to stay on their own dirt. And me, I was the one they called when something needed killing.
The crowd leaned in. Even the insectoid who had jeered earlier was silent now, antennae curled tight against his skull.
I took the contract. Easy prey, I thought. I'd killed war beasts taller than towers. I'd ripped the hides from void serpents that crushed ships in their coils. So what was one soft-skinned biped with a stick in their hands?
He spat to the side, the saliva sizzling where it struck the grate. His cloudy eye twitched.
I tracked one through the ruins of their camp. Blood trail, fresh. They were wounded, cornered. No ship, no allies. All they had was a jagged piece of steel they called a blade.
A murmur rolled through the bar. An amphibian whispered.
Steel? Against him?
Another hushed him with a trembling hand. The predator's good eye flicked upward, distant, as if reliving the hunt in real time.
They knew I was coming. They didn't run, didn't beg, didn't hide. They just waited, bleeding, back against the wall. And when I stepped into the open...
He paused, his tusks clenched, muscles taut.
They smiled at me.
The words hung in the smoky air like a curse. No one laughed this time. No one dared. The room had heard countless hunts end in glory, but this one had just begun, and already the hunter's voice carried the weight of a man who'd lost. The predator's claws drummed once on the counter, then his voice sank, as if he was no longer in the bar at all.
I can still see it. The ruins of their camp, smoke rising from broken fires. I tracked a scent of blood through shattered stone. My steps were loud. On purpose, I wanted them to hear me coming. Wanted them to know who owned the hunt.
He paused, mug untouched, eye fixed on something far away.
They were there. Lean bodies slumped against the wall, shirt torn and soaked with red. One arm wrapped in bandages made from their own clothing. They had nothing but a shard of steel clenched in white-knuckled fists. I thought they would tremble when they saw me.
His tusks ground against each other. His clawed hand flexed unconsciously.
They didn't tremble. They lifted that shard and pointed it at me. Bleeding, cornered, no chance at survival. And they grinned, like the end didn't matter. Like I was the one in danger.
The bar was silent, every eye fixed on him. Even the bartender had stopped, glass still in his hand.
I charged, claws ready. I thought I'd end it quick, but they moved. Not fast, not strong, just right. Every step, every dodge. My hide still carries the cuts from that shard.
He pulled back one arm and slammed his claw onto the bar, the scars across his forearm glinting in the neon haze. Deep, jagged lines etched into flesh, healed, but never forgotten.
I could have killed them in seconds. Should have, but I couldn't. Not after that smile. Not after that look in their eyes.
The predator exhaled, long and ragged. In his voice, the bar heard something no beast had ever given him. Not rage, not hunger, not fear. Something far worse. Humanity. The predator's voice dropped even lower. The growl beneath it hollow now, like gravel pouring down a chute.
I've hunted beasts across 1,000 systems. I've seen jaws wide enough to swallow dropships, eyes that glowed like suns, claws sharp enough to cut tanks in two. And I laughed. I laughed at them all.
He leaned forward on the bar, tusks bared, not in pride, but in something rawer. His good eye glistened in the neon haze.
But when I looked at that human, bleeding, quartered, smiling at me like I was prey, I felt fear, real fear, the kind that freezes your marrow, the kind that whispers you're not the hunter anymore.
The bar was silent. Smoke curled upward in slow spirals, untouched. A single mug somewhere dripped foam onto the floor, with a steady pat, pat, pat.
I saw my death in their eyes, not because they were stronger, not because they were faster, but because they refused to break. They wanted me to see it, to know that even if I killed them, I'd never forget that smile.
His claws dug into the counter, leaving fresh gouges in the wood. The bartender flinched but said nothing.
I ran. Do you hear me? I ran from prey, and I never hunted again.
Every alien in the room sat stiff, jaws locked, eyes averted. No one mocked, no one dared. The barflies who came for a story of blood and glory received something else, the image of a predator broken, and in his silence, they understood. Humans were no prey. The predator sat back heavily, the stool groaning under his weight. He no longer looked at the crowd. His gaze was locked somewhere else, on ghosts only he could see. He lifted his mug, stared into the foam, then set it back down without drinking. His voice was gravel over steel, but softer now, stripped of all bravado.
I never mounted that kill, never carved a trophy, never returned for the bounty. I left the field with my claws empty and my heart hollow.
The crowd shifted uneasily, but no one spoke, not even the drunk amphibian who had heckled him before.
I'd thought every scar on my body was proof of victory, proof that I was stronger, fiercer, the last true hunter. But those scars...
He tapped his chest.
These don't remind me of what I killed. They remind me of the one I couldn't.
His claws flexed and retracted, slow and deliberate. He exhaled sharply, a sound that might have been a laugh, if not for the dead weight in it.
I never hunted again. Not beasts, not prey, not anything. Because once you've stared into the eyes of a human who knows they're dying and still smiles at you, the hunt ends.
He pushed the mug away. The wood creaked under the scrape, loud in the silence. His tusks caught the light, but his expression was empty, drained. The room of killers and smugglers had wanted a boast, a tale to drink to. What they received instead was a confession, one that clung heavier than any victory. The predator's good eye, glowing faintly in the neon, not with triumph, but with memory that refused to die. The bar stayed still. No one moved, no one spoke. The smoke hung heavy in the neon haze, swirling slowly like it, too, fear to draw attention. The laughter and jeers that had filled the room earlier were gone, smothered. A furred quadruped stared into his untouched drink, ears flat against its skull. The insectoid's antennae twitched, curling tight, eyes locked on the table as though afraid to meet the predator's gaze. Even the amphibian, loudest of them all, hunched low on his stool, his throat sac trembling with words that never came. The predator sat motionless, shoulders slumped, one claw tracing the fresh gouges he'd carved into the counter. His good eye flicked across the room, daring someone to speak, to mock, to laugh. No one did. The bartender polished a glass slowly, eyes never leaving the predator. He didn't speak either. Not yet.
That's why I stopped. That's why the trophies ended. Not because I couldn't hunt, but because the hunt meant nothing after them.
He shoved the mug away, claws scraping against the wood. The sound echoed like a growl. The silence pressed in tighter. The galaxy's most feared hunter had spoken, and his words carried more weight than 1,000 kills. The room full of killers and thieves sat in silence, not because they respected him, but because they understood. The predator sat still, claws resting open on the counter, his mug pushed aside. His breathing was slow, heavy, filling the silence like a drum beat. Around him, no one dared to move. Finally, the bartender set down the glass he'd been polishing. He leaned forward, resting both hands on the counter, his slick, oil-sheen skin catching the neon glow. His voice was quiet, almost conversational, but it carried to every ear in the room.
That's why we don't hunt humans anymore.
The words landed like a hammer. The predator didn't flinch, didn't nod. He only stared into the shadows ahead of him, jaw tight, tusks glinting. The crowd sat frozen, eyes downcast. No one argued, no one laughed. The bartender picked up the glass again, wiping it with slow, steady motions. The scrape of cloth on glass was the only sound in the bar. The tale was over. Not a boast, not a laugh, a warning. And in that silence, every soul in the room understood. Some prey should never be hunted. The predator stayed hunched over his mug, silent, tusks catching the neon light. The bartender returned to his slow, steady rhythm, polishing glass after glass as if nothing had been said. The patrons didn't move, didn't speak. The smoke thickened, curling like whispers through the dim neon haze. Somewhere in the back, a light flickered, then died. The camera lingered on the bar, scarred wood, gouges carved deep, mugs half empty and forgotten. The weight of the story pressed against every corner of the room, as though even the walls remembered. No one laughed again that night. And so the tale ended, not in triumph, not in cheers, but in silence. A silence that stretched long after the hunter's words faded. Remember it well, dear listener, because in this galaxy, some prey is better left untouched. This concludes the story. If you liked it, let me know. If not, let me know as well. I'm always looking to improve on what I'm doing. Also, there will be no chens in my stories. I kid. No, I'm not. And what did you think of the thumbnail? I am having a slight issue in that department, and I'm looking to get better. Farewell, travelers.